1. Stop chasing, start leading. Many men fall into the habit of chasing a woman they're interested in. It often starts with good intentions, being kind, showing interest, reaching out. But over time, this consistent pursuit can shift from confident expression to anxious chasing. And chasing rarely builds attraction. When you chase, you're unknowingly placing her above yourself. You're saying, "I hope I'm good enough," instead of, "This is who I am, and you're welcome to be part of it." It creates an uneven dynamic, one where you give too much while waiting for her to validate your worth. That dynamic doesn't create respect or emotional interest. What creates respect, and eventually attraction, is leadership. Leading means you're clear about who you are and where you're going. You don't wait around for her to respond to your messages. You make plans, you move forward, and if she fits into those plans, great. If not, you keep moving with the same energy and purpose. This doesn't mean being rude, distant, or cold. It means being intentional. Instead of asking, "When are you free?" you say, "I'll be at this spot Saturday. You're welcome to join." That small shift communicates something powerful. You're not trying to fit into her life. You're inviting her into yours. Leading also means having a direction in your life that isn't defined by her attention. You have goals, hobbies, routines, and values that don't pause when a new person enters your life. This grounded mindset is what makes you stand out. Most importantly, women can feel the difference between someone who leads and someone who chases. Leadership is steady and self-assured. Chasing is anxious and uncertain. And that emotional difference changes how you're perceived, not just by her, but by others too. So, the next time you feel the urge to keep checking your phone, to keep initiating, to keep proving yourself, pause. Ask yourself, am I chasing her approval, or am I leading with confidence? Shift from seeking validation to building connection. You don't need to chase to be noticed. You need to lead to be remembered. 2. Rejection is a test, not a verdict. Rejection is something every man has faced at some point. You express interest, and she responds with something like, "I'm not interested," or "I don't see you that way." For many men, this moment becomes the end of the story. They walk away discouraged, thinking they've failed. But here's a more balanced perspective. Sometimes, rejection isn't final. It's not always a clear verdict on your worth. It can often be a moment of emotional testing, whether consciously or not. Many women observe how you respond to pressure, especially in early interactions. It's not about playing games, it's about emotional intelligence. If your confidence disappears the moment you face resistance, it signals insecurity. On the other hand, if you remain calm, composed, and unbothered, it shows and that leaves an impression. Rejection can also happen because of timing, mood, or past experiences that have nothing to do with you. In those cases, how you carry yourself still matters. Responding with grace, not frustration or withdrawal, shows maturity. That doesn't mean you should ignore clear boundaries or keep pursuing someone who genuinely isn't interested. Respect is essential. But what you should also understand is this: many initial rejections aren't about you personally. Sometimes it's a filter, a way to see if you react emotionally or stay grounded in your value. Think about it this way: when a woman says no, and you don't push, don't plead, and don't retreat into self-doubt, you're showing that your confidence isn't dependent on her reaction. That level of self-control is rare and often respected. One practical example: you approach her with a kind comment or question, and she responds with disinterest. Instead of reacting, you simply acknowledge her space, smile lightly, and move on. That quiet, respectful exit says more than any clever reply ever could. In the long run, it's not about avoiding rejection, it's about how you carry yourself in the face of it. When you stop taking it personally and start seeing it as feedback or a moment of growth, rejection loses its power to define you. And ironically, that mindset often changes how others respond to you going forward. 3. Nice guys bore her to death. There's a common belief that being a nice guy is the best way to win a woman's heart. Be polite, be available, say all the right things, offer help even when she doesn't ask, always agree, always support. While kindness and respect are important qualities, the problem begins when a man defines his entire approach around being liked rather than being himself. Being kind is not the issue. The real issue is when a man uses niceness as a strategy, hoping it will lead to attraction. In most cases, this doesn't work. Why? Because relationships aren't built on politeness alone. Emotional connection, healthy tension, mystery, and even small challenges are what spark genuine interest. A man who always says yes, who avoids disagreement, who constantly tries to please, can come across as lacking depth. There's no contrast, no unpredictability, no individuality. Over time, this kind of dynamic becomes too easy to predict, and that predictability often leads to a lack of excitement or interest. Women naturally respond to emotional experiences. They are drawn to people who bring energy, direction, and presence. If your presence feels more like quiet agreement than strong identity, it can leave the interaction feeling flat, not because you're unworthy, but because nothing has been sparked. This doesn't mean you should become the opposite, rude, dismissive, or inconsiderate. The goal isn't to reject kindness. The goal is to have a personality that's rooted in self-respect and individuality. Say no when it matters. Speak up when you disagree. Be kind, but don't sacrifice your voice just to be liked. When a man has boundaries, principles, and confidence, and still treats people with respect, that combination creates depth. It shows that he's not just trying to gain approval, but that he genuinely values himself and others. In short, don't try to be the perfect guy who never challenges, never questions, never leads. Be someone who listens, but also speaks with purpose. Someone who supports, but doesn't lose himself in the process. Because when you shift from trying to be liked to simply being authentic, you'll find that real connection comes more naturally and with much more strength. 4. Be a mystery, not a messenger in today's world. It's easy to fall into the habit of constant communication. With instant messaging and social media, many men feel pressure to always stay connected, to reply quickly, to update her on every detail of their day, or to keep the conversation going even when there's nothing meaningful to say. But here's the truth. When there's no space, there's no curiosity. And without curiosity, interest fades. When you're constantly available, always texting back instantly, and oversharing every thought, you remove the element of mystery. And mystery is important because it creates emotional engagement. People naturally wonder about what they don't fully know. That sense of not having complete access is what makes someone intriguing. Many men overshare out of a desire to connect, to be understood, or to feel close. But when that sharing becomes too frequent or too predictable, it often has the opposite effect. Instead of building connection, it begins to feel routine. There's no anticipation, no spark of what's he thinking, or what's he up to. Being a mystery doesn't mean being secretive or playing games. It means holding back just enough so that the other person has room to lean in. It's about not rushing to fill silence or constantly proving your worth through words. It's knowing that sometimes less is more. Men who are centered in themselves, who are focused on their own goals, who don't rely on constant communication for validation, naturally carry an energy that feels solid and grounded. They don't need to update anyone on every move they make, because they trust that their presence is enough. So if you find yourself always reaching out, always checking in, or always trying to impress through conversation, pause, ask yourself, am I communicating to connect, or am I trying to fill a space that should be left open? Leave room for her imagination to work. Let her wonder about you a little. When you stop narrating your every move and start allowing silence to speak, you become more engaging, not less. And over time, that quiet presence becomes something she values, because it stands out in a world that's always talking. 5. Trigger her jealousy without saying a word. Jealousy, when approached respectfully and naturally, can be a quiet reminder of your value. It's not about playing games or trying to provoke insecurity. It's about living your life in a way that reflects self-worth, independence, and quiet confidence, and letting others observe that energy without forcing it. Many men mistakenly believe that women are most attracted to men who focus on them completely, give them undivided attention, and avoid interacting with others. But in reality, subtle social signals matter. When a man is socially active, respected by peers, and comfortable around others, including other women, it creates a quiet sense of interest. Not because he's doing anything wrong, but because it shows that he is valuable to more than just one person. Jealousy in this context doesn't mean creating drama or posting photos just to get a reaction. It means living a full life that includes connection, activity, and confidence, and letting her see that you aren't dependent on her validation. That kind of quiet independence stands out. When you engage in healthy conversations with others, pursue your goals, stay involved in your community, and carry yourself with calm assurance, it naturally raises your perceived value. It also reminds her that she's not the only one who notices you, and that if she wants to keep your attention, it's something to be earned, not assumed. This isn't about competition or pressure. It's about emotional presence. When someone sees that you are appreciated, respected, and noticed by others, it creates a moment of reflection. Am I showing up fully in this connection? Could I be missing out on something valuable? And that reflection can often lead to deeper engagement. So instead of over-explaining, trying to prove your loyalty, or forcing reassurance, focus on becoming a man who naturally draws respect. Let your actions speak. Be kind, be grounded, but most importantly, be centered in your own life. A little emotional distance, when balanced with integrity, is not cold, it's compelling. Let her feel that you're not waiting around. You're building something, and if she wants to be part of it, she's welcome. But either way, you're moving forward. 6. Silence speaks louder than compliments in relationships and dating. Many men try to build connection by offering frequent praise, compliments on her appearance, her smile, her style, or her personality, all often shared early and repeatedly. While kindness is important, too much verbal admiration too soon can actually weaken attraction, not strengthen it. Here's why. When a compliment is given before a genuine connection is formed, it may feel more like a strategy than sincere appreciation. Overused compliments, especially in the early stages, can come across as routine or rehearsed. They start to lose meaning, not because the words are wrong, but because they come without emotional foundation. In contrast, well-placed silence is powerful. It gives room for tension to build. It creates space for both people to feel the moment, rather than fill it with noise. A man who is calm, quiet, and comfortable in silence doesn't need to constantly speak to be felt. His presence becomes the message. This kind of silence isn't awkward, it's intentional. It shows you don't feel pressure to entertain or impress. You're okay with being still. And in that stillness, something unique happens. The other person begins to feel your energy more than your words. That's where deeper connection often begins. Of course, sincere compliments still matter, but they should be earned, not given out of habit. When you observe something specific and meaningful, and express it in a calm, honest way, it carries far more weight than a dozen surface-level remarks. It's also important to let her wonder what you're thinking. That small mystery creates curiosity, and curiosity naturally leads to engagement. You don't need to flatter her into liking you. You simply need to stay present, grounded, and selective with your words. In a world where many people are quick to speak, the man who knows when not to stands out. So next time you feel the urge to fill silence with another compliment, pause. Let your calm presence speak for itself. Allow her to feel the depth of your energy without rushing to explain it. Because sometimes, the most attractive thing you can do is say nothing at all. 7. Make her work for your attention. In the early stages of interest, many men feel pressure to give a woman constant attention. Quick replies, frequent check-ins, daily compliments, all in the hope that consistency will lead to connection. But when attention is freely given without effort or reciprocity, it often loses its value. Human nature responds to effort. What we work for, we tend to appreciate more. The same applies in relationships, especially in the early dynamics between two people. When your attention is always available and requires no effort to earn, it can be taken for granted, not because she's unkind, but because the attention hasn't been made meaningful. Your attention has value. It's a reflection of your time, your energy, and your focus, all of which are limited. When you give it too freely, especially to someone who hasn't yet shown genuine interest or investment, you unintentionally lower its perceived worth. This doesn't mean playing games or withholding for the sake of control. It means being intentional. It means noticing when the effort is one-sided and allowing space for the other person to step forward. It's okay to slow down, to not reply instantly, or to prioritize your own goals and responsibilities before jumping into long conversations. When you begin to make your attention something that must be earned through mutual respect, effort, and consistency, it naturally becomes more appreciated. She begins to recognize that you're not just looking for someone to give your time to. You're looking for someone who values it. And when she does start putting in the effort, initiating conversations, asking about your day, making plans, you'll notice the difference. That shift from passive interest to active participation is when genuine connection begins to grow. So ask yourself, am I giving my attention because I feel secure and connected, or because I'm afraid of being forgotten? If it's the latter, take a step back, reclaim your time, focus on your life, your goals, and your growth. Because when a man values his own attention, others begin to value it too, and the right woman will show you, through her actions, that she sees and respects your presence. Point 8. Let her wonder what you're thinking. One of the most quietly powerful things you can do is create space for mystery, not by hiding who you are, but by allowing moments where your thoughts are not immediately shared. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means being comfortable enough in your own mind that you don't always feel the need to explain yourself. In today's world of instant communication, many people feel the urge to overshare, to constantly clarify, express, or reassure, but mystery has its own magnetic pull. When a woman can't easily predict what you're thinking, she becomes more engaged. She starts paying closer attention. She watches for clues in your body language, your pauses, your subtle expressions, not just your words. This is where real emotional presence is felt. You don't have to be unreadable, but letting her wonder a little about your thoughts, your plans, your feelings builds tension in a healthy way. It tells her you are deep, self-contained, and not seeking validation through That kind of calm restraint is rare, and rare is attractive. Being mysterious isn't about being confusing or detached. It's about being whole within yourself. A man who doesn't rush to fill silence shows emotional control. A man who listens more than he speaks earns respect. And a man who thinks before he responds creates depth in the connection. When you let her wonder what's on your mind, you give her a chance to invest in the interaction. She leans in, she becomes more curious, and that curiosity leads to interest. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're genuinely grounded in your own experience. This approach also helps filter out surface-level attraction. The women who truly want to understand you will take the time. They'll ask better questions, they'll be more present, and they'll respect your silence rather than fear it. So don't rush to be understood. Don't feel the need to give everything away up front. Let your energy speak before your words do. Because the man who doesn't reveal everything right away often ends up being the one she can't stop thinking about. *9. Keep your energy centered on your self-attraction isn't just about what you say or do. It's about where your energy flows. A man who centers his energy on others, always checking how she feels, trying to please her, or adjusting his mood based on her reactions, loses his grounding. He begins orbiting around her world instead of standing firmly in his own. And when that happens, something shifts. He becomes more reactive than composed, more dependent than secure. Women sense that shift quickly. Emotional presence is powerful, but emotional overinvestment too early can signal neediness. It suggests that your inner world is shaped by her validation, not by your own values, habits, and direction. Now, imagine a man who keeps his energy centered on himself. 10. Don't try to control the outcome. One of the most liberating things a man can learn is this: you don't need to control how it ends to enjoy what it is. When you approach a woman, have a conversation, or begin a connection, your role is not to manipulate the direction it takes. It's to show up fully and let things unfold with integrity. The moment you begin trying to control the outcome, whether to make her like you, to avoid rejection, or to secure her affection, you lose your center. You move from presence into pressure. Control is rooted in fear, fear of loss, fear of being misunderstood, fear of not being enough. But when you let go of the need to shape her reaction, you free yourself from the burden of performance. That's where your strength lies, not in certainty, but in surrender. Letting go of outcomes doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care in a healthier way. You offer your presence, your attention, your words, but without the silent expectation that she must feel the same, respond a certain way, or commit on your timeline. This approach is rare. Most people operate in subtle negotiation. If I act like this, she should respond like that. But human connection isn't a formula, it's fluid. The more you try to manage how she perceives you, the less genuine you become. And that lack of authenticity creates distance. A Stoic man understands this deeply. His actions are guided by his values, not by external validation. He invests his energy in the process, not the result. And when the outcome doesn't match his hope, he accepts it with calm, not because he doesn't feel, but because he refuses to be ruled by what he cannot control. Women feel this difference. They sense when you're grounded, unattached to the result, yet fully present in the moment. That's attractive. That's rare. That's the kind of presence that stays with someone long after the moment has passed. So be present, be intentional, but let go, because the man who doesn't try to force what's meant to be often finds that what's real comes to him anyway, wakes up with purpose, follows a routine, invests in his passions, and stays consistent in his mindset, regardless of who comes or goes. His confidence isn't loud, but steady. He doesn't chase validation. He's not moved by silence, delay, or distance. Why? Because he's not seeking wholeness through someone else. He already has it. This kind of centered energy is magnetic. When your focus is on your own growth, peace, and purpose, you naturally attract others, not through force, but through quiet gravity. You become the calm in the storm, the grounded one in the room. She notices you're not easily swayed, and in a world full of men trying to impress or be chosen, the one who isn't chasing stands out. This isn't about ignoring her or being emotionally unavailable. It's about understanding that your life doesn't stop or bend around anyone. You are the constant in your own story. Relationships enhance your life, but they don't define it. When you keep your energy centered, you lead from within. Your peace becomes non-negotiable. Your presence becomes intentional, and slowly, others begin to respect and feel your stability. 11. Let her come to you when she's ready. One of the most misunderstood lessons in attraction is this. Sometimes, the most powerful move is no move at all. When a woman seems distant, unsure, or not yet open, the natural impulse is to do more, to explain yourself, to convince her, or to prove your worth. But in truth, attraction isn't built through pressure. It grows in space. It develops in stillness. It takes root when she chooses to move toward you on her own terms. You don't need to chase what isn't meeting you halfway. A man who understands this doesn't beg for attention, nor does he rush emotional timing. He knows that everyone opens up in their own time, not when he wants them to, but when they feel safe, interested, or ready. That level of patience is rare, and it's powerful. When you stop trying to pull someone closer, they get to feel what life is like without your presence constantly reaching out, and often, that absence speaks louder than any message you could send. It creates a natural contrast. It gives her the space to notice what she misses, or realize what matters. It also reveals something deeper, your emotional discipline, because the man who can sit in silence, who doesn't panic in the unknown, who stays grounded even when he doesn't get instant validation, that man radiates confidence. He respects her timing, but more importantly, he respects his own peace. This is not about manipulation, it's about maturity. You're not waiting with hidden expectations. You're simply living focused on your own path, your own growth, your own calm. And if she comes back, she returns to a man who didn't lose himself trying to earn her. She returns to someone who never abandoned his self-respect. Letting her come to you, if she ever does, is not weakness. It's strength. It's belief in your value, without needing to constantly prove it. So don't force the connection. Don't chase what resists. Let your silence speak. Let your stillness reflect your strength. And when she's ready, truly ready, she'll come to you not because you pushed, but because you didn't. So don't pour all your energy outward hoping to be seen. Instead, let it radiate from within. Because the man who stays centered, no matter who he's with, is the one who earns quiet respect and lasting attraction. 12. Respect her silence. It says more than words. Silence isn't always empty. In relationships, it often speaks volumes. When a woman grows quiet, pulls away, or doesn't respond like she used to, most men react with anxiety. They flood her phone, demand answers, or spiral into frustration. But a man who lives by inner strength doesn't chase noise. He listens to what the silence is trying to say, because silence is a message. You just have to stop interrupting it long enough to understand it. Maybe she's thinking, maybe she's uncertain, or maybe her silence is the answer. Either way, you don't gain anything by pushing for clarity before she's ready to give it. In fact, the more you press, the more she retreats. Not because you're wrong to care, but because your energy becomes overwhelming. Respecting her silence means respecting her autonomy. It shows that you're strong enough to give space without feeling abandoned, that you trust yourself enough not to panic when you're no longer in control of the narrative, and that you can stay calm in uncertainty. which is one of the highest forms of emotional intelligence. Stoicism teaches us not to rush what isn't ours to command. If she isn't ready to speak, don't try to force the moment. Don't project meaning onto her stillness. Just hold your own ground. Observe. Let things breathe. Because in time, people reveal themselves. They return when they feel safe. They speak when the words matter. And if they don't, you've already shown yourself the kind of strength that doesn't collapse when someone else goes quiet. That's the kind of presence that builds real respect, not just from her, but within yourself. So don't resent the silence. Don't take it personally. Instead, treat it as a boundary and respond with self-respect. Stay rooted in your own life. Continue moving forward without bitterness or neediness. Let her come forward when she's ready, and if she never does, you didn't lose her. You simply honored her distance without sacrificing your dignity. Point 13. When you detach emotionally, you see the truth. Clearly, emotional attachment often blinds us. When you're deeply invested in someone, especially a woman you care about, your mind begins to filter reality. You make excuses for her distance. You overlook red flags. You confuse potential with presence. That emotional fog can keep you stuck in patterns that slowly drain your dignity. This is why emotional detachment is not coldness, it's clarity. When you step back and stop reacting to every shift in her mood, every delayed reply, every change in energy, something powerful happens. You begin to see the relationship as it is, not as you wish it to be. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You start observing, not overthinking. You begin listening to her actions, not just her words. You learn to accept what's in front of you, instead of fighting for a version of her that only lives in your mind. Stoicism teaches us to master our emotions, not by suppressing them, but by seeing them clearly and choosing not to be ruled by them. So when she pulls away, you don't chase. When her energy changes, you don't beg for explanations. When she grows distant, you don't shrink in fear, you rise in awareness. Detachment brings perspective. You realize that your value isn't based on her interests, that your peace doesn't depend on her consistency, and that the right connection will never require you to lose yourself to maintain it. Most importantly, emotional detachment helps you recover yourself. You return to your purpose, your discipline, your quiet confidence. You stop looking to her for reassurance and find it within. And when she sees that, she notices the difference. She feels the strength. She recognizes a man who is no longer reacting, but reflecting. You don't detach to punish her, you detach to protect yourself. And through that stillness, the truth becomes undeniable. If she's meant for you, your calm will draw her back. If she's not, your clarity will help you let her go. Either way, you win because you saw clearly, and you didn't lose your center. 14. A woman respects a man who can walk away quietly. There's a kind of strength that doesn't need to raise its voice. It doesn't argue, it doesn't beg. It doesn't need closure or one last word. It simply walks away, not in anger, not in pride, but in peace. That strength leaves an impact far deeper than any emotional outburst ever could. A man who can walk away quietly shows something rare: emotional self-control. He's not reacting from insecurity. He's not trying to make her feel guilty. He's not hoping she'll chase after him. He's walking away because he recognizes when a situation no longer serves his peace, and he respects himself enough not to stay where he's not valued. This doesn't mean he stops caring. It means he cares enough about his own well-being to stop forcing something that has already let him go. When a woman sees that kind of quiet departure, something shifts. She notices that you didn't need a dramatic exit to prove your worth. You didn't argue to win her back. You didn't crumble just because she became distant. You stayed grounded. You stayed composed, and you left with your dignity intact. That stillness is rare, and it leaves a mark. Stoicism teaches us that true power is measured by what we can walk away from without losing ourselves. A man who needs nothing has nothing to fear. And when you show that you can release someone without resentment, you reveal that your strength comes from within, not from who stays in your life. Walking away quietly doesn't mean giving up. It means you've accepted the truth and chosen peace over resistance. Some women only realize a man's value when he's no longer there to remind them, not through words, but through silence, through the space you leave behind, and whether she returns or not becomes irrelevant. Because you didn't leave to be noticed. You left because you respected yourself, and that kind of quiet exit, it echoes louder than anything you could have said. 15. She only values you when you stop explaining yourself. Man who constantly explains himself is often seeking something: validation, understanding, or acceptance. But the more you try to justify your intentions, your silence, your standards, the less she listens. Why? Because your need to explain silently says, I need you to see me. I need you to agree with me. And that's where you begin to lose your power. The truth is, not everything you feel needs to be explained. Not every boundary you set needs to be defended. Not every decision requires her approval. When you carry yourself with quiet certainty, you no longer try to convince her, you simply act. And that's when she begins to notice. When a man speaks less and moves with calm conviction, a woman pays closer attention. She starts to wonder what's on your mind. She questions why you no longer seek her validation. Your silence becomes powerful because it signals emotional independence. Stoicism teaches that your actions reflect your values, not your words. You don't need to explain why you're pulling back when her energy is inconsistent. You don't owe a speech about why you don't tolerate mixed signals. You simply adjust. You move. You protect your peace. And the moment you stop explaining, she starts respecting. Not because you were loud, but because you were still. It shows you've stopped trying to win her over and started choosing yourself. That shift in energy is what often triggers reflection in her. She realizes she may have underestimated your strength, that you're not afraid to be misunderstood, that your self-respect outweighs your desire to be liked. Let your presence speak. Let your boundaries teach. Let your silence echo. Because the more you explain, the more you dilute your essence. But when you stop explaining, when you walk calmly, when you act deliberately, when you stay grounded even in the face of confusion, you show her the kind of man she can't control, can't manipulate, and can't ignore. And in that quiet, you become unforgettable.